Hey guys, it's Jonathan Bocher here from PlayGuitar.com. Today I want for us to put on our theory hats. Okay, music theory is tremendously useful and important for every guitar player to understand at least something of, right? You don't have to be a theory buff per se, but a little bit of knowledge can go a long ways. And today I wanted to look at specifically the structure of a suspended 4-chord. And, you know, chord structure is one of these issues that there's a lot of confusion about. So, Sus4. Great sounding chord, super common. That's a D Sus4 right there. Now, I'm hoping you're familiar with a D major. If you're not familiar with a D major, you're going to find this video way over your head, okay? So back up and go to some of the beginner videos. But I'm assuming that you're well familiar with a D major chord. So what we want to do is turn that D major chord into a D Sus4 chord, which you're also probably familiar with. And before we can do that, we kind of need to understand how we get a D major chord. Well, you may have heard the 1-3-5 formula before. I've talked about that in my Unlocking 1-4-5 course. Not to be confused with 1-4-5, which is usually referring to the major chords in a key, the 3 major chords in a major key. But 1-3-5 actually refers to chord structure. And all that it means is we're using the one note, which is the root note. So in this case, that's D, right? So there's a D. And then if we follow through on the major scale, we got to go 1, 2, 3. Well, that's an F sharp. So we need a D, we need an F sharp. 3, 4, 5. 5 is A. So we need D, F sharp, and A to create a major chord. Now, it doesn't matter what order you put those in, it'll be a D major chord anywhere on the fretboard, okay? So that's at the heart of this, okay? Now let's have a look at this D major chord that we all know and love. Well, what are our notes? We got D, then we got A, then we got another D, and that's a good thing to note right there is that you can have as many octave repeats as you want in the chord, and it's not going to change the name of the chord. It's still going to be a D major chord. You could have, a D there, and we could drop this C, we could drop it down to D. That would give you 3 Ds in one chord. Not going to change the name, okay? It's still going to be a D major chord. And then, of course, our last note, we got our D, A, D. And then we still need one more note to make it a D major chord. And that's our F sharp right there on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. Okay, that's the 3rd in the chord. Now, with the D Sus4 chord, what we're doing is we're actually suspending that 3rd. We're going to kind of remove it from the picture, and we're going to replace it with a 4th. And of course, in the context of, well, it doesn't really matter which chord you're talking about. Anytime you've got a major 3rd, all you got to do is go up 1 semitone, and you've got a 4th in relation to the root note. So in the context of D, there's our D, there's our F sharp, which is the major 3rd. Up 1 semitone gets us a G, which is the 4. So there's our F sharp. There's our G on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. That's how we build a D Sus4. Now we could also talk about D Sus2 or D Sus9. There's various other types of suspended chords and a lot of different other types of chords that we could get into too. But we don't really have time for that. I wanted to kind of demonstrate instead what you can do. Now you'd be like, okay, well, I understand now how to create a D Sus4 chord. And I realize we've gone through this in really fast detail, or I guess a low level of detail, and really quite quickly. We go through it a lot more slowly and in much more detail in the course itself, Dynamic Rhythm Guitar, which you can find at PlayGuitar.com/dynamics. But what can we do with this now that we've learned that, right? So just to recap, we've got 1, not 3-5, but 1-4-5 gets us a sus4 chord. So this is where the terminology, if you're a little bit shaky on it, you know, you can start getting confused with 1-4-5. Oh yeah, G, C, and D, right? 3 major chords. No, we're not talking about that. We're actually talking about chord structure here. 1-4-5 is a suspended 4 chord. But since we brought in the topic of G, why not apply this sus4 to a different chord and see what happens? Well, there's a nice G major chord, right? What if we want to make that a sus4 chord? Because most people are familiar with this D sus4. It's got to be one of the more common sus chords you're going to find on guitar. But G sus4, not quite as common. Well, we can apply the same thing. Let's first off have a look at the notes that are found in this chord. We got G, we got B, we got D, another G, another B, and another G. Okay, what's the problem note? The problem note is B, which is the major third. So we got 1 there, and we've got 1 here on the open 2nd string. So we got to deal with that. Well, there's a few different ways to go. I'll give you the way that I think sounds best. What we're going to do is we're going to actually forget about this B here on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, because if we boost that up to being a 4th, you get that kind of thing happening in the bottom end, and it just kind of sounds a little bit muddy and undefined. So instead what we're going to do is we're just going to take our finger off of that note and then roll this finger down, the 3rd finger, roll it down just a wee bit. So you can hear I'm actually muting the 5th string with the fleshy part of the finger right here. So I'm playing the 6th string and then muting the 5th string. Then carrying through and playing the rest of the strings open. And then with this other B, we're going to add in our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. And that gets us a C. We go from B to C. And that's a really nice sounding chord. And a really useful one. So what we did there is we basically took the formula for a D sus4 chord, which is really formula for any kind of a sus4 chord. We applied that to another chord of our choice. You could do that for A, for E, for whatever kind of chord you want. You can apply the same reasoning to figure out how to build that chord. Well, you say, yeah, that's all cool and all that, but I got a chord chart and it gives me all kinds of different chords. Fair enough. I know that, you know, D sus4, who needs to really know how to build that chord because it's on every chord chart? Well, what if you don't want to play it there? What if you want to find another place on the fretboard to play it? You know, we could also play that up here. So there we got a D, G, and an A. So you can play around with that. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can set that up. It all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And those might be kind of awkward patterns for you to use in rhythm, but what about in your solos? You could apply this to solos as well. If you actually sat down and analyzed a lot of the really great sounding iconic solos, you're going to find they're actually very closely integrated with the notes in the chords that are being played. And I'm not talking that the soloist is actually changing position, you know, changing scale patterns with the chords. That may be the case. But what I'm talking about is he's actually working off of the notes that are found in the chords that are being played in the rhythm section behind, right? And in order to do that, you got to know what notes are in the chords, and that's what we've just done. We looked at D, F sharp, and A, or D, G, and A in the case of the Sus4. And once you understand how to go about finding those notes, then that gives you a position where you can start working off of that, either from your riffs or in your solos if you want to go in that direction. So there are many, many different ways to apply just a little bit of guitar theory to your playing, and it can really help things, right? You can start looking at, thirds and come up with all kinds of cool combinations all over the fretboard. But that's all a lot more in-depth than we have time for today. So anyways, Jonathan Bocher here from PlayGuitar.com. We go through all this stuff in an awful lot more detail in the Dynamic Rhythm Guitar course. And you can find out more about that at PlayGuitar.com/dynamics. You have yourself a great day.